Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out. We are so lucky to have labor and delivery nurses Jamie O'Day and Emily Silver with us today. Jamie and Emily started newborn and parenting support, otherwise known as NAPS, in 2011 after hearing parents repeatedly ask them, "Can I take you home with us?" And after meeting them, I totally would have been one of those parents. In 2017, they committed to running NAPS as their full-time jobs. NAPS is a series of classes, boot camps, a podcast, as well as their signature membership service, Nurture by NAPS, that are all designed to help parents thrive in every stage, from conception through preschool. As moms, Jamie and Emily understand the importance of prioritizing mental health and making yourself a priority as a parent. On this episode, they provide simple tips and tricks they have learned over the years and talk to us about why sleep is so important in this equation.
Welcome, guys, to a mom's night out.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
I know, we're so excited. And we had reached out to you guys because I saw this post. It's been a while, but it was on social media and it just really resonated with us. I'm going to read the quote.
Which one was it?
Okay. Imagine if as kids, we were taught that practicing self-love and self-care wasn't selfish, but instead our number one priority. And I thought that was so important.
Sounds like a Jamie post.
It was a Jamie
They're like, we actually didn't write that. It might have been somebody else's account.
No, yeah, that was a post. I had done that we did a whole series around mental health, so May's Mental Health Awareness Month. And that was just like one of the posts that we had for mental health.
It just really made me think, like, why as women and moms, why do we have such a hard time prioritizing ourselves?
I mean, I could go deep on how deep do you want me to go? Yeah. So I don't want to take full credit for what I'm about to say, because a lot of the stuff that I've actually learned came from a woman who actually started off as a NAPS client of ours. Her name is Meg Saxelby. And she's a social emotional educator, coach, professional. And she teaches, she runs one of our working mom support groups. And she's just been this awesome person who started as a NAPS client, and then we, transitioned
Every time you talk to her or interact with her, you take away a nugget of oh my God, that was so helpful. I could
say it again. I want to write it down.
Sometimes I do make her repeat herself, and
she's been on our podcast a few times. But so when you ask this question, I go in a couple different directions, and the first place that I feel like I want to start with the way that you asked it in particular. And this comes from Meg, and Meg would probably credit somebody else if she was the one talking about it, but I'm going to credit Meg. It's actually a made up cultural belief, in our society, right? That women's worth is measured by how much they give to others.
Yes. Whoa.
Wow.
So this is a made up social construct. Okay.
It's so true.
But it is true, right? So true. Think I was just having this conversation last week with my veteran mom support group. We met up in person last week. And one of the women was talking about how when she goes away, or she knows that her husband needs to get in a workout every day to be his best self. Right. So she's I come hell or high water, I will make sure he gets that workout in. And I'll be like, babe, you didn't work out today. You need to go and do that. Right.
Yeah.
And it is that's such a good example of what we're doing for other people to make sure that they're getting what they need without ever giving that to ourselves. So I was like, okay, so what do you want to do every day? And she was like, I mean, I would love to do a workout class. I was like, okay, so why aren't you making that happen for yourself?
Right.
And she was like, well, and then this leads into guilt, right?
Yes.
Well, I feel bad. I feel guilty. My husband isn't the one pushing me to do it, right? Because, right? And I'm talking in male, female, right? Identify as women, identify as men, but for the sake of this podcast, I'll just say moms and dads, right? But men are different. Their worth is much more in what they produce, right? And what they're putting out into the world, not necessarily and I don't want to say taking, right? But what they're producing. Where women, it's much more about what you're giving. right?
So true.
So then this translates into guilt. I feel bad about taking time away to like go for a workout class. That feels selfish, right? But like men don't feel that way because of this societal social construct that we've created.
Yeah.
So it's made up. Like this isn't like based on research, like this is how women are wired and these are your, biophysical mechanics of it and blah, blah, blah.
So you go for the run. I have been at work all day. I finally just got home. I wouldn't presume to leave the baby. Like I haven't seen the baby all day. I'm making dinner. I don't want to miss bath and bedtime. Like you start doing all the things too.
Yeah. So I like to start with that of like, this is made up. This isn't like, it's a real thing.
Who made it up? Men?
I mean, good question.
Maybe.
Great question. I think, this is all it depends on how deep we want to go into this, but we are many societies, right? I would argue all societies and cultures, like we all know, right, have this element of like men's worth versus women's worth. And that men have overall been like more worthy. If you just look at like pay, right? Yeah. And we've done so much work, like it's getting better, right? And this is why it's made up, right? Because it's getting better. But we've done so much work to narrow the pay gap until you have a kid.
Yes.
And then there's still actually a pretty big gap between what women get paid after they have kids and men get paid after they have kids, right?
Yes.
So there's still more work to be done. So this is a cultural thing around. Yeah, I mean, goes back to, I don't know, the cavemen days, probably.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But if you think about it, right? Like, even if you think about bringing it back to its simplest form, hunters and gatherers, right? Where the men's role and the women's role would be to take care of the house and the kids.
Yeah.
It's what men are bringing home, right? What they're foraging while they're out, right? And women is like
a rabbit.
Right, like, the meals that I prepped and the kids being healthy, right?
Yeah.
So true.
So,
we need a time machine to go back and change all of that.
The one thing I'll add to this too that comes to mind for me is like the concept of gatekeeping. So like when we work with parents now, there are partners who recognize that, they should, they went for the run, their wife or partner should also go for the run. But another thing that you see like that's all connected is that we have this like inherent nature or want to like take care of our baby or our child. It's like this natural instinct. I did it with all three of my kids. Like I'm watching my husband put the diaper on and I'm like, that's not tight enough.
Yeah. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong. Or he's feeding the baby and no matter how he's holding the bottle, I'm like, it's not the right flow. Like you just start commenting and you don't even realize you're doing it. And so that leads to the partner being like, well, okay, like then you do it.
Yes.
Or you walk in and you take over. You're like, the baby's crying. You just take the baby from your partner. So they stop asking to help you or they stop honestly wanting to do it because you're not nice to them when you're accidentally, unintentionally gatekeeping them.
I know. We're the problem. Part of the problem.
I didn't even think about it like that. That's wild.
You're ready to go after the partners over there. Yeah. No, I just, we all play into it.
So there's a term for that too, which is maternal gatekeeping.
Maternal gatekeeping. It's a real term.
And like, again, when we're thinking about like the progress that we've made, right? Like there are plenty of partners now that like want to help and are much more involved even if you just look at my parents' generation and like my grandparents, right? Yes. Like so much has shifted and in a really good way, I think. And there's still a lot more to do. It's not just on like cultural, on the cultural side or society side or that men need to change, right? It is also like recognizing some of this stuff in ourselves.
Well, I think about my three kids, like my first daughter, I did it with all three. My first daughter, my husband just stepped away and let me do everything. My second, when he tried to help and I did that, he was just sort of like, you're mean. Maybe he used another word like you're mean, right? My third, he actually said, I'm all set. You're doing that thing where you're like trying to micromanage me and I don't need it. He used to call me like it was like a quarterback or I don't need a... You're
trying to do a sports reference.
Yeah, I can't remember what he said.
Is it Monday morning quarterback?
He's like, I don't need this sidelining.
Monday morning. She just gave it to you, the Monday morning quarterback.
Something like that.
How did you know that?
But it was like a nicer, like jokey way of being like, get up off my dick, right? Yeah. Like he was like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just so tired of
if we did just step back, The dads would handle
They're
it just
capable.
That's what
fine.
I was saying
They're
to my
capable.
group.
You didn't
last
marry
week.
a monster. You
Exactly.
probably married a smart, capable human being.
That's literally what I said. Like,
Right?
you married this person for a reason. They're capable.
You must like
just
them.
leave. Walk away.
Okay, that leads me to my next question, or our next question. Was there a moment when you realized how important, preaching about self-care for women and for moms?
Yourself,
like,
yeah.
was there a moment that it hit you? Was it before you started this business? Was it after?
So I would say, like, I don't think that you can fully understand the impact that having a child has on your ability to be able to do things until you actually have a kid. So I don't think this was something that we thought about. I shouldn't say that we thought about, that we talked about in such a passionate way until we had kids. And I'm sure you all can resonate with this, right? Like, I think one of the things that we experience in the transition to parenthood, an emotion that we experience in the transition to parenthood with our first kid that people don't label, is like the feeling that you have is probably guilt. I mean, it's probably grief. Different G word, is grief. Like, I don't think that people label that though. Like, grief of your former life.
Oh.
Grief to be able to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it. Like, and I think other people outside of this, outside of mothers transitioning to motherhood, started to feel this like during COVID, right? Like, people were like, weren't able to travel whenever they wanted to, weren't able to meet up with friends when they wanted
from
to.
like the closet in your bedroom while your toddler cries outside on the floor.
And so many people, literally, and so many people were like, I'm grieving the life that I used to have.
Right.
That's what mothers feel every single time that they make this transition
Yes.
to motherhood, whether we realize we feel it or not.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you make this transition, and I think there's this element of grief that we never label.
And we don't acknowledge it or admit it because we feel bad. We're like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to be grateful.
Right.
Like, I always tell people, I'm like, I hated being pregnant. I was so sick. And during my pregnancy, I was like, I want to die. Like, I physically hate this, but then I'd be like, I feel so bad. I wanted this. Like, I'm supposed to be blessed and grateful that I'm having this baby that I wanted.
Yeah.
It's like you can actually have both feelings.
Yes.
I felt the same way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So I feel like that's the element of it where, like, when we talk about self-care as moms, there is this transition that happens, and you have to define it completely different than you did before.
I think
you
we
had
got more
kids.
passionate each kid we had.
100%.
And not even our own kids, like the way we showed up for each other.
Yes.
Like, and our own postpartum experiences, like the more we kept doing it.
Yeah.
I think we got better at it each time.
Yeah, for sure. Even as the kids get older, I'm getting better and better at it every year.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely wasn't until we had kids that it was like, oh, this is special.
That's what it's all about.
That is
So
what
what
it's
would
all
you
about.
tell someone who's feeling guilty about finding time or struggling to make time for themselves?
Like, there are two things that I tell everybody. I know you're going to say from Sarah.
Go, you. Yeah. Go. You go. You go.
I'm on the
You
edge
go.
of my seat.
Well, no, I don't know if I'm going to say the same thing as you.
Okay, so again, like, crediting somebody else for like bringing this to our attention. So Sarah Harmon, she's a licensed mental health counselor.
We have some good women in our circle here.
Yeah.
A friend of ours.
Yeah.
And so she says, if guilt only serves a purpose if you're doing something wrong. Right? So like the feeling of guilt only serves a purpose if you've done something wrong. Call it lying, stealing, cheating, right?
Yes.
Murdering.
Not shopping, not doing something for yourself, not taking
Not going
care
for
of
a
yourself.
run, not having a spa day, not
Correct.
going for drinks with girlfriends.
Sleeping in the morning while your partner gets
Correct.
up.
Goodness.
Those
I
aren't
feel
wrong.
like a deadbeat mom over here, and it's like, oh my god, you slept till 8.
When you feel guilty outside of something that you're not doing wrong, the only purpose that it serves is to make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
So like, so you're still going to feel guilty, right? But like, just recognizing when you're feeling guilty and being like, okay, I feel guilty right now. Am I doing anything wrong? Right? Like, if the answer is no, then it's
Right.
like, you're not just going to like all of a sudden not feel guilty. Right? But like, it's like, okay, I don't need to, like, just reminding yourself, like, I don't need to feel guilty about this. I'm not doing anything wrong. The second thing that I tell people, if like that maybe doesn't work, or you need to like take it a step further, is ask yourself, would your partner feel guilty for doing the same
That's
thing
what I
you're
was
doing?
gonna say.
that one.
That's what I was
love
gonna
that
say.
one.
That's my
You know?
favorite run, right? Because
Yeah.
like,
The answer is no.
Right.
Never.
Right.
The answer is always no.
And I feel like as women, it's like, or as a wife too, and a mom, like supporting my husband as a dad, like I bend over backwards sometimes to make sure like he can go places or he can go out.
Totally.
And he does the same for me, but
and I'm not saying that in like an angry, resentful way towards my spouse. I am saying that in like this is enlightening. And this is going back to like this like cultural belief, right? That like women's worth is based on what they give. Like if I start comparing myself to whether or not my husband feels bad about it, I'm moving away from that cultural belief. Right. So it's like, if your partner wouldn't feel bad about doing the exact same thing, then there's no reason why you should feel bad about it.
Yeah. And then we'll give that push too of like, you have to do it because, and sometimes I'll give a personal example of like, it's like, I know it's so corny, but the oxygen mask, like you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Like people get so sick of hearing that, but I'm like, you're just not going to show up as a good mom or wife or person if you're not taking care of yourself. And it usually takes doing that one thing for yourself. And then they have that experience where they're like, oh my God, I feel so much like I was happier. I was so much more playful with my child. I wasn't yelling as much. I like said thank you to my husband instead of wanting to like, murder him.
Coming back to murder.
Keep bringing up murder. Let's talk more.
I know what's happening on Friday.
I'm going to circle back to murder the whole podcast. I'm just keeping your listeners engaged.
Yeah, we got the 2 G's in murder now.
True crime podcast
Or a drinking game.
But in my new mom support groups, I'll be like, when we have this talk, because we do, I'll say like, okay, let's go around and what's everyone going to do this week? You pick one thing that you're going to do for yourself before next week. And you're going to talk to your partner. You're going to barter it. You're going to figure out what he's doing, what you're doing, what she's doing, whatever their partnership is. And then I'm like, I'm writing it down, y'all. And I'm going to be following up next week.
Can I tell you
powerful?
Can I tell you a funny story about this?
Were you given homework one time?
I wasn't given homework. This woman came, so we gave her homework. She did it. And then she came in with this enlightening piece, which I will share with you all. So mom support group, Emily and I do this, like, right? This is like one of our like assignments. You're not really assigned things. You can do it if you want. But we were like, pick a thing to do. So this woman did. She was like, I'm going out to dinner with a girlfriend. I'm like, great. So she comes in the following week. We're going around and everybody's saying what they did. And she's like, I went to dinner with my girlfriend. And it was so fun. Like we went out to dinner, we had a few drinks. They might have gone to a show or something too, whatever. She's like, I came home a little bit buzzed. And when I came home, like I ended up having sex with my husband. And she was like, the next morning, right? And it had been a while.
For the first time in
maybe. It had been
months,
a while.
Yeah.
And she was like, the next morning, my husband was like, that was so great that you like went out with your friend. Like you hadn't seen her in so long. Like maybe you should schedule something again for next week. And I was like, you've cracked the code.
Yes, that is it.
I was like, so pick the thing, have some sex after.
Yeah.
And like, you're probably
That's
gonna
your
have
ticket.
This
like
is
say that all the time.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah, it's like Pavlov and the bell and the dog.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
We say that all the time.
They
I'm
are
like,
so like it could be whatever, like anything.
I know.
Like if my husband made me a margarita and we happened to have sex that night, the next night he'd be like shaking a cocktail, like being like, "Hey, do you want margaritas again tonight?" Like because he's so like him. So why are you doing that?
the answer is have sex with your husband.
Yeah.
just save it for that thing that you've been like dying to do and want to keep doing it.
I love this so much. You've cracked the code.
You've cracked the code. Oh my God.
so funny. I'll never forget that. That was like 6 years ago, and I share this story all the time.
Good.
It's such a good one.
Another thing that we talk a lot about too is setting boundaries and like how do setting boundaries play into being able to prioritize yourself, or like what advice, because it is hard to set a boundary.
It actually like is the perfect segue of like because we're talking about doing something for yourself, which is like how we think about self-care. And so like when you self-care, I think is like this buzzword, especially when you look on social media and you see like outside of doing things for yourself, like a bath bomb or having a glass of wine or going to the spa all day. And Jamie and I are constantly like, that's lovely and we'll get down with that. But like actually self-care is setting boundaries, and that, and when you're able to do that, that's actually the first step for like doing the thing for yourself. Yes. Women often resist setting boundaries or they struggle with them because they're hard. They're uncomfortable. So we talk about this like concept of short-term discomfort versus long-term discomfort.
Yeah.
So like, and yes, you might be saying no to somebody, like, no, we can't do that, or no, we're not having visitors, or no, whatever. So then you're like, I feel like this naggy bitch. I'm just saying no all the time. But you're actually you're saying no to someone to like show up and say yes to yourself. And it's the act of like, would you rather have the short-term discomfort of like,
setting the boundary.
Yeah.
Right.
Setting the boundary versus living in like the long-term discomfort of whatever it is because you're not.
So true.
So like when you talk to people like that, I feel like that becomes helpful. But that, and the boundary, like, I think the best place to start is with yourself, like deciding like what you're going to do for yourself. But then you're like thinking about boundaries that you need with that's different buckets, with your partner, with your childcare provider, with your workplace, with your friends, with your family, especially after you have a baby too.
One definition of boundaries that I love, there's a million different ways that you could look at boundaries, right? But like one definition of boundaries that I love and has really resonated with me as a mom is like, I care about this relationship too much to allow it to go on this way.
Whoa.
So like when you think about like, especially with a loved one, right? So whether you're talking about your spouse or your mother or your mother-in-law or another family member, or maybe it's a close friend, right? Where it's like, they're like doing things that you're just like, this is not okay. Like it cannot continue like this. But it feels really difficult to have that conversation with the loved one, right? And if it's something you're seeing often, we think that the hardest part about setting a boundary is like setting that initial boundary. Yeah. The hardest part about setting a boundary is having to reset it over and over and over and over again.
Well, plus the person who needs the person who's the hardest to do it with is the person who needs it
the most.
Right.
So they're going to break the boundary.
And then they test their limits.
So reminding yourself that like, I'm setting this boundary, and I've used this example with my own mom, right? Where like, I love her.
I always think of your mom when we talk about this.
Right.
Sorry, Mom.
And I love her, but like there are certain things that she was doing when she watched my kids one day a week for too long. And hi, Mom. Hope you don't listen to this.
Thanks
and so there were things that she was doing where it was like, one of the things was she would show up at different times every fucking week. And I'm like, I have a job.
Yeah.
Like I have patients that I'm going to see in their home. Where I would just be like,
I'm going to be there by 9.
So I would have this conversation over and over again around like, I need you, like it started with like, I need you to be here. I would tell her the night before, like, I have an appointment at 9. I need you to be here by 8:30 at the latest. And it's like, she's calling me at 8:40, letting me know she got off the exit. I'm like, what? Then it was like, why don't you tell me what time you can be here every week? And I just won't schedule anything before then. Yep. And that like worked for a little while. And then we were like back to her showing up late again, right? Sometimes she would show up at 6 o'clock in the morning before I was even awake and like scare the shit out of me. I'm like, what's happening? Wow. But ultimately, like what ended up really helping me with like setting the initial boundary with some of this stuff, eventually talking to her about not watching my kids anymore, was me. And whether she saw it this way or not didn't matter, right? Like this is how I saw it, which was like, I care about our, like how this is going is impaired. Like it's not good for our relationship. Like I'm feeling like really angry and resentful towards you all the time. And that's not good for our mother-daughter relationship, right? So it was this element of like, I care about this relationship too much to allow it to go on this way. And so it actually has to change, right?
I love that.
So that's been really helpful for me. And I think it's helpful, especially with loved ones in your life.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Talking about making yourself a priority, and as we've evolved in this podcast, we really like our listeners to have like takeaways from our topic. So
plenty of those, my friend.
I mean, you've had gold this whole time, but if you could give women or men or anyone listening 3 things that they could do today to prioritize themselves, what would those 3 things be? Like easy things to do to prioritize themselves today.
Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I mean, I have lots of things buzzing in my head. I mean, for me, like the biggest thing is that if you say you're going to do something, it's like this protection of you and your partner that you're going to show up for each other. So like with parents of newborns, I talk about like stepping away from the scene. Like everybody needs a moment in the day to like tag team and step out. And then as like kids get older, you're still continuing to do it. And so it's like this way that you protect each other, that in the morning or that week when you look at the calendar, you actually not only say who's doing what and when, but you schedule it in, and then like you make it happen. And then when it happens, you don't like shit all over it.
Yeah. So like, I feel like, so number one, I feel like would be like start small is what you're sort of saying.
Yeah. Cause
like,
it could be 20 minutes. Like,
And if you're going to say you do it, you're going to do it.
Think about like a newborn, right? It's like when I tell a parent with a newborn, like, you should take time for yourself today. They're like, cool. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yes.
And I'll be like, and it can't be showering, shitting, shaving, pumping, eating. Like that stuff doesn't count. And then,
well, for men, shitting might count.
Even if I took a baby from a mom and was like, "Go, I'm gonna hold your baby. Go do something," they're just sort of like,
"What do I do?"
Like I don't even know what to do.
So I think there's an element to that where it's like, if you're gonna start small, right? And people who need to start small is usually because like their basic human needs aren't being met. Mm-hmm. So like there's this spectrum of like what you can do for a level of self-care that if you're not meeting your basic human needs, you're on one end of the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like it's like figuring out first, like what your capacity is right now. Like if you're not sleeping, if you're not nourishing your body, if you're not even moving your body yet, right? Like then
you're not gonna like go to a like Peloton class for an hour.
If you're feeling anxious or depressed or no, totally right?
But that's that's true. It's a good reminder,
right? So like first is like what's your capacity? Where are you at, right? If you're not meeting your basic human needs, you need a plan to actually just like meet your basic human needs, right? Feeding, sleep, finding a therapist, right? Like, let's start there. Then it's like, start small, right? Maybe it's 5 minutes a day, maybe it's 10 minutes a day, maybe it's 20 minutes a day, right? But make a list, like to your point, like somebody's like, do something, like make a list of the things that you enjoy
I'm like,
doing.
write shit down. Like, what do you like doing? Like, what makes you tick? And you have to pick big ones and small ones. So like a long hot shower, listening to a podcast, or like sitting in your room in silence, like with the door shut.
Going for a walk, reading a book, meeting up with a friend, right? Like,
I love that. Make a list.
Because then when someone offers you, especially when you're postpartum space, you literally can't think of one thing that you like to do.
No.
Because like, I don't even remember.
Yeah,
because you're like,
I asked my mom group this week, there's 10 moms of newborns. I said, what does everyone like to do?
Yeah.
And they were like, they came up with them eventually, but they had to like really think.
Took
They're
a
like,
second.
I used to ski. I'm like, yes.
Good.
I like snowboarding. I didn't do it for 8 years.
Yeah.
Now I do it again, right?
It cannot be kid related. Like we had an episode on hobbies, and it was actually hard to be like,
I know, we were like, no hobbies with kids.
You can't talk about kids. You can't talk about them going to my kids' sports.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
and
they got to be outside that box.
I like to drive to gymnastics 3 days a week.
We just had a guest on. I was like, what do you like to do? I'm going to intro you. And we were like cackling, laughing. She's like, laundry, make lunches. And I was like, no, dig deeper. But it's true. And this is a
like
seasoned mom of 3 who couldn't think of 3, like multiple things that she did for herself. She got there eventually.
Yep.
But it's so true. And I think as new moms listening, right? Like, you forget who you are.
Sometimes saying, what did you used to like to do before you had the baby?
That's right.
Because then you're like, helpful. I used to rollerblade. I used to play the piano.
You did.
I know.
Yep. Those are all true.
Forgot about those things.
She used to ice skate.
Those are cool.
A lot of fun facts.
Figure skating. So I feel like just figure out where you're at on the spectrum of basic human needs, right? If your needs are being met, you can probably like do bigger things, right? And then have an accountability partner, like, and it can be your partner or a friend, maybe.
Do you want to explain bartering?
For sure.
Yeah.
Bartering for time.
Yeah, are we getting too off topic here?
I mean, I was going to go, I can go to that in 1 second. And then,
bartering.
Yeah, like showing up, you and your
did
partner
this
showing
week,
up.
so I can give my example.
Yeah. And then it's like, I think a piece of this too, like the other thing that I would say is like, again, this is sort of like a progression. Like once you start to get a little bit better with it, with yourself, and this is where like bartering can come into play with your partner, then also like carve out some time for you and your partner. I feel like that is like,
It's hard.
man.
It feels hard. I know. I know, because you're like, where do I do it? How do I do it?
I have to tell you though, and this took me years to get to where my husband and I are at now, but now we do a weekly date night. Like bullshit of like the little, micro arguments or annoyances or whatever, they're really non-existent. I don't want to say totally gone, right? But like they're not there as much because we have this like built-in time to connect with each other. And there are moments where like we'll talk about specific things related to the kids, just like with what happened in the week or the week ahead. But most of the time, we're not talking about the kids.
I love that.
So even just like building that into your routine.
I asked
too, is
you
really
recently,
helpful.
like, do you ever run out of things to talk about your husband since you go out every week?
So I've talked about this before because it's like, we'll do a date. Like I will pick like an activity to do sometimes for date night. Like we've gone to Grace by Nia here, in Boston. And that was like a great date night because like, because like we could eat and drink, but there was like music going, like a show going on. So like, that was a good space to like not have anything to talk about.
So I have a couple right now in one of my groups that has a newborn and they don't have family around. So when we were talking about the concept of spending time together, they truly were like, we don't really know how to do that. And they end up now when they put the baby to bed, they take the baby monitor and they sit out on their like their patio in the city and they just like sit outside for even 20 minutes.
Totally.
So it's like you don't necessarily have to like bring a babysitter over and have childcare and go out to something. You could like
I tell people
put
they can
your
have a coffee
iPhones
date
in the bowl, the fruit bowl in the kitchen and like sit in another room and actually watch a show together without being on your phones or something like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Big into a day date when the kids are at daycare.
Totally.
Or school.
I love a day date. It's so
Totally.
fun.
Or a morning date. Like if you get up before your kids, or maybe once the kids have like gone off to daycare or something, like maybe you just like sit and have a coffee together. Like, anyway.
You'll find the time.
You will.
You just have to find it.
You have to look for it. Yeah.
So we're going to switch topics now and we're going to talk about sleep because you guys are sleep consultants. So let's dive right in. What is the number one questions parents ask you when they contact you with needing help around sleep?
Is my baby sleeping enough? Is my baby sleeping too much? How do I get my baby to sleep?
That's what you think is
I'm
the number
not
one question.
sleeping.
The number one question is how the fuck do I get my baby to sleep?
I'm like, people
It's like-
ask if their baby's sleeping too much.
No, but it's the worries.
there
Like
are,
everybody has worries about their child, and
Yes.
it all comes back to sleep.
Yeah.
Always.
So
Well, it
especially
all
if
comes back
parents
to
aren't
how
sleeping,
much the parent is sleeping.
it's the parent. It's their sleep is impacted, and then there's a lot of worries. About
I mean,
the
this
baby's
isn't a
sleep.
huge shift from what we were just talking about because I was talking about basic human needs being met, right? And like
this is
this
one of them.
Sleep is so important.
Wouldn't you say is probably the number one basic human need?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
think
so
so.
much research too that shows that like having sleep when especially postpartum improves like your mental health outcomes and your and like like mood disorders that you could be experiencing.
Yeah.
It's so true. And as a mom, I think we put sleep on the back burner. I know I do. Like I'll stay up late to have to do things. I've really been trying to sleep more. The girls know. I'm like, sorry, don't text me after 9. I'm in bed with my melatonin sleeping.
Yeah.
But it took me 7 years to get here.
Right.
So I think as
a long
moms,
time.
we put sleep on the back burner, and that's
It goes back to what we started with of this podcast, though, is this concept that like women have this like we become like the caretaker of the baby, and whether the gatekeeping syndrome or taking on all the duties. A classic example is like if you're a breastfeeding mom, you're like, I'm up in the middle of the night. I'm going to get up and do all the breastfeeding sessions. And then all of a sudden that turns into, I don't need you to get up because I'll just do the diaper and I'll just reswaddle and I'll take on the night. And you're back at work. So I feel bad waking you up. So I'll just do it all.
The voice in my head.
And I went through this with my first and I was like, I didn't let my husband help me at all. And then when he was back at work, I was like, I must let him sleep like he's working. And I would sleep in the guest room with the baby. And Sarah Harmon at the time, who we work with now, she's in our mental health expert in nurture, was like, Emily, everyone is tired when you have a baby.
And everyone's working
everyone
hard.
is working.
Yeah, like he was working out of the house. You were working in the house.
He wasn't even not willing to help me. I was like, I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you.
Yeah.
And I was a train wreck.
No.
The more that I would go without sleep by like 4 or 5 days out, I would like have a panic attack, call Jamie or my mom crying, being like, I need so much help. Like,
Correct.
I was a mess. And then like somebody would come and take the baby and I would sleep through the night. And then the next day I'd be like, hey, like,
everything's great.
I'm thriving again.
So then what did you do with your third?
So with my third, So I prioritized sleep and I interviewed nursing students and I hired 3 nursing students and I had night help every night with my third until I slept trained her, because I literally was very like mentally unhinged postpartum after my first and like not that great after my second. And I like lived my best life after my third baby. I was like so healthy. I didn't have any anxiety, like outside of like what I would consider normal worry.
Wow. Your bestie's looking at you like,
I'm kidding. You were
Less
totally fine. No, you were
meltdowns.
totally
Like
fine. Yeah.
I was able to get out of the house. I was able to take care of my other kids. And I know not everyone can do that, but like Jamie was really good about prioritizing meal delivery and like outsourcing stuff. And for me, it was like, I actually don't need any of that other stuff. I just need to sleep.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad about it. I think when we first started this podcast, we were speaking openly about how we were accepting help and hiring help, and we got a little flack behind the scenes that got back to us, like, who do they think they are? Like, having
about
help.
hiring help?
Well, I just felt
Hiring
weird
help.
even saying out loud that I hired students for every night because it feels so privileged. But
Yes.
it's like I actually like saved money throughout my whole pregnancy and put it aside and was like, this is for that, because even though it's an expense that I'm choosing to use it on, like that outweighed
The flip side.
the flip side
Yes.
of what.
And I'm sure
like, should I be hospitalized the third time
Right,
because I'm so
exactly.
mentally unwell?
But women find, like, I feel like as we're having these conversations, women find that, you know, they're like a superhero if they don't accept help, and accepting help is bad. And it's like, no.
Because
there's
we are
shame.
socially conditioned for our worth to be measured by how much we give to others.
Yes.
It's wild.
Right, so, like-
hear that again, ladies. Listen up, okay?
So I do want to touch though, like on the privilege piece, because you're right. Like it is
a privilege.
it is a privilege to be able to
1000%.
hire help. So I don't like,
1000%.
I want to be really clear in that, but like, just because even if you're not in a position to hire help, or maybe you don't want to spend money on that, or maybe you didn't save money for it because you
Right.
didn't know it was going to be as bad as it is, that doesn't mean that you can't find help in other ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I often give people different, like a variety of ways that somebody can help them. Like maybe it really is that your partner is actually maybe you're doing every other night with your partner, right?
Yep.
You're taking over all the feeds one night, your partner's taking over all the feeds the next night. And like, that's actually the balance. Maybe you're doing half of the night and your partner's doing the other half of the night, if you're talking about sleep, right? And when we're talking about sleep, like I'm talking about these early days, right?
Yeah.
It's like the first 12 weeks.
Right. Maybe you can't pay to have a meal delivery service, but you can say yes to the people who are offering to drop something off to you.
You know what? That's so true, because I
Yes.
feel like people are always offering, like, oh, like, what can I do to help? And as women, I'm always saying, oh, I'm good.
I'm
no.
good.
And in my
Naturally
head, I'm
say,
like,
I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
So the
should have
other
said,
thing
yes,
is-
please bring me all the
Yes.
food. Come watch my children.
Totally.
Yeah.
My yard needs some help.
Right. And that's
Mow the lawn.
Yeah.
That's two-sided though, right? Like, I think we need to change how we offer help. Hey, would it be helpful for me today to drop off coffee and breakfast, or take your dog for a walk, or both?
Or just say, I'm bringing you dinner this week. Which night would you prefer?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Like,
I love
it's
that.
coming whether you want it or not.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think that, like that, but the question usually is like, hey, just checking in on you. Is there anything that I can do? Right.
It's overwhelming to answer that.
And there,
Yeah,
right,
I don't
and
even know
for
what I'd
like-
like to do. You want me now to give you a list of what you can do for me?
Right.
No.
And there are like many people, the response is like, yeah, I don't need anything. I'm fine. When really in your head it's like, I need
or if you get me on day
everything.
5, I'm like, I just need everything and nothing.
Well, listen, sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
Yeah.
So, guys, remember that. Like, it's an actual form of torture, like in warfare.
I feel, I mean, if I have a bad night's sleep, it's awful. I'm mean to everybody.
Me too.
I can't think clearly. It's so hard.
I'm not a nice mom. Like, I'm snappy with my kids,
Yeah.
and I know it, and then
Totally.
I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, even if you're not in a position maybe to pay for help, like just thinking about the people in your life who love you and are willing to help, I think is always just like a good lens to look at it through also.
Absolutely.
It's
It's like asking for help and accepting help are two things
learned
that are
skills.
coming up here now as well. It feels really hard to not only ask for help, but what we're doing right now is highlighting that it's even hard to accept help.
Yeah.
I know one of our things is, like what, if there were some really simple tips and tricks. And I feel like that has got to be number one. Like for parents right now that are in it or even out of it. Like, and there's days when like our kids are sick, even with older
Exactly.
kids. Like, ask for help and accept it.
100%.
Or like Jenny's hot water heater wasn't working, right? And we're like, Jenny,
shower.
you didn't tell us that, right? Like, come shower at our
I was
house.
like boiling the water and putting it in the bathtub.
She lives half a mile down the road, but like this is what we have an issue.
But part of it was that you're in your
We
cycle.
need to chat about
I know.
that.
We were like doing
You're
all
in
the
your
sports.
cycle and didn't think to text a friend?
Just threw you under the bus right
Multiple
there.
times.
I'm
They were-
still mad. Can you
There
tell?
were multiple
Let me
baths.
boil water, and were you like
Like,
hand
I don't
washing
even
clothes?
understand.
I know.
How big was the pot?
In hindsight,
Lobster
Was it a
pot.
lobster pot? That's what I was just gonna ask.
no, it's like not a
I
lot
wish
of
we had
water in the
video
tub.
of
This is like when I was drinking black coffee all day, though. Like you just
you
get
tell
when
I
you're
was
in
mad?
a dark place. You're in a dark place.
Oh my God.
I know.
We do this as women.
We do. We take it all
You
on.
probably didn't want to inconvenience
No, I
me.
will admit I'm the worst one probably to ask for help.
Yeah,
I'm the worst
you
one.
are.
But even if we all leave here right now and we're like, okay, we're going to start asking for help and accepting help, no one's
so
going to
hard.
do it. You actually have to like think about it and practice it.
Yeah.
We make our moms and our groups do it. We're like, what is like one thing that you could ask for each morning when you get up? Like, could you think of one thing that you could ask for help on?
Wow.
Like, I'm going to call my husband and ask him to pick up dinner on the way home. Like, it could be really, and it's like, okay, you checked the box, you did it.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about like the support you provide, because I feel like they're not like huge asks that you're asking people in your groups to do, but they're things you forget to do.
I mean, yeah, like we talk about like going off of these questions. Like I usually tell people to ask themselves like 3 questions every day.
Yep.
And anybody can do this at any stage of life. Like when we're talking to parents about this, it's usually when they have a newborn at home. But like truly,
I still
any
do it
stage-
now with my kids
Totally.
are getting older.
Yeah, I'm
So
like, what
it's
are the 3 questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's what am I going to do today? What am I not going to do today? And what am I going to ask for help with? So what am I going to do today is so fucking easy, right? Like we have a to-do list of
bra on.
things that we're going to do. And depending on like what stage you're in, right? Like it might be like change out of one pair of yoga pants into another pair of yoga pants.
Fresh
Fine.
pants.
That might be the one thing that you're going to do. Maybe it's I'm going to go for a walk around the block, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be big.
It doesn't have to be big. But equally important is question number 2, which is what am I not going to do today? Because we have this ongoing to-do list, and what happens when we don't get everything done at the end of the day? Like,
Feel like
we
shit.
make ourselves feel
Yeah.
like shit about it.
Mandy needs to ask
Yeah.
herself that question.
Yeah. I've been getting better. What am I not going to do today?
Mine are always the same for that one. I'll either be like, I'm not folding the laundry in the dryer, or I'm not cooking dinner.
But what that does at the
love
end of
that.
the day, you guys, right, is like at the end of the day, when the pile of laundry is still on the dining room table,
I'm like, I never said I was doing that.
I said I was. I not only did I say I never said I was going to do it, I specifically said I'm not going to fucking do that, right?
Then you don't feel like shit.
I feel like they're
shit.
talking to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the house
never
where there was constantly laundry on the
I've
dining
never
room
actually,
table.
I think, asked that question to myself.
Yeah.
But if you say it and you make it well known to everybody too, like
Right.
I'd be like to
Yeah.
my husband, like, I'm not doing the laundry today.
Correct.
Take out your microphone
Yeah.
and say it.
Yep.
Literally, a megaphone.
Megaphone.
Just letting you all know the answers to my 3 questions this morning.
There will be no dinner
It's
on
like
the table.
instead of
Must
the
have not
trumpet to
making you
like wake you
breakfast.
up in the morning, it's just your declaration of the 3
There's
things.
that Amazon karaoke machine that somebody gave me for the kid's birthday.
I think I gave that.
I'm not cleaning up the toy room before bed. Like, I'm
welcome.
just going to leave it till tomorrow.
I gave that to you, FYI. You didn't know that,
Oh my
did you?
gosh.
Gift that
Little
keeps on
treat.
giving.
We have one of those at my house too. And then the last one is what am I going to ask for help with, right? And it might be
Yeah.
like Emily said, like maybe you're saying to your husband, like, hey,
dinner.
can you pick up dinner on the way home? Maybe it's, you know, you're asking for a friend to take one of your kids on a play date after school because you have the sick kid at home. Like just pick, like something simple. Maybe it's something at work. Maybe you're asking a coworker to help you with something, right? So yeah, love those 3 questions. I mean, we've gotten so off topic. I mean, it's because what the question
this is actually really important.
I think this is great.
It's so important.
And then
It's
we
unlike us to veer in different
I can
directions.
also tell you how to get your kid to sleep, but I
we
feel like
we don't need to go into that.
Yeah.
This was more like
Join a
overall.
group, book a call. We'll have your kids sleeping.
But yeah, I think we
By
can,
the end
I
of
want to
it.
know like what you guys, what's offered. I feel like I've just had a therapy appointment.
Yeah, this
This
is
felt great.
powerful.
you know,
Seriously.
we're very experienced in therapy.
That's why you're doing what you're doing.
Well versed in therapy. Is Siri talking to us?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, she is.
Siri, turn
She
off.
said warning.
She's like, the
getting
energy
crazy over
the
there.
energy is too big in this room. Turn it down.
It's so good.
Talk to us about NAPS and then the newest, Nurture by NAPS.
Yes. Would you like to go?
I mean, I'll give you the quick and dirty background of NAPS, which is that Jamie and I are former labor and delivery nurses. We met working the night shift before we had kids, before we were married. We worked at night.
wow.
We just
Not to
delivered.
each other, to our spouses.
Although if we played a newlywed game, we would slay.
Crush it.
Better than if you're with
to each other.
with our husbands. But we worked the night shift. We delivered thousands of babies. It was awesome. We loved it.
Yeah.
And really, just truly, we would bring the patients down to postpartum after delivery. And they started asking us like if they would ever see us again. Could they get our number? They seemed really scared to go home.
Yes.
And we were
you guys
like,
have all been there.
And we were like, well, bye. Like, but when we started talking, we were like, why are parents so scared? Like what awaits for them at home? And like, what does support look like? And so we started really like not only looking in Boston, but really like looking at our whole country, other healthcare systems and models that existed. And so we were like, okay, there's a lack of support for parents, not just postpartum. Actually, we even started looking in the prenatal space.
Oh, yeah.
And we were like, somebody needs to do something about this. So we initially started just offering daytime and overnight care. We hired nurses. We offered care to clients in their home. And then it just like became a snowball rolling down a hill. And the more that we grew in like our getting married and having our own kids and what our clients were expressing like needs for, that's how the services evolved. So into prenatal education, lactation consulting, we became IBCLCs, sleep support, peer support groups, like connecting parents. It just started growing.
Yeah, I mean, I think like now, so we've been in July, I don't know when this episode will air, but we'll be 13 years.
Wow. Crazy.
Congratulations.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks. So yeah,
Thanks. What are we doing?
I mean, as long as we've been married is as long as we've had this business. My husband and I got married the same year that we started the business, which is kind of funny.
Crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so we've been in business for 13 years, and really like now the stage that we're at, and Emily like, obviously highlighted a lot of the services that we provide. We're ultimately like what we're trying to do here, right, is for the services that we're providing to be a one-stop shop for families from pregnancy through the preschool years. So, and I'm sure you all have experienced this, right? Like you did prenatal classes in one place, and then you had somebody else who helped you with feeding, and then you went to another person for sleep consulting, and you maybe looked at another person for starting solids or picky eating or whatever, potty training, right? So it's all, and it's no different than the way that our healthcare system is set up. Like our healthcare system is so fragmented, right?
You call one doctor and they're like, sorry, you've got to call that doctor.
Right. Yes.
Nobody wants to take accountability of you.
And so, and there's no reason why, especially as registered nurses and nurse practitioners, right? Like, I don't know who you see for your healthcare providers, but like so many people see like a nurse practitioner for their kids for like basically the entirety of their care until they turn 18, right? So like there's no reason why like nurses and nurse practitioners actually can't be the people providing you with education and support through this entire journey. Exactly. And it actually all be in one place, and you actually like get to develop a relationship with them and have it be people who give a shit about you, right?
And have been through it, and then you have your community of other moms going through it as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a piece of like nursing care, and I hope this has been, your experience and other people's experiences, right? Is that like when you think about somebody who like was really like with you and in it, and you felt like they like gave a shit about you, if you've ever had anything done in the medical setting, right? Even just labor and delivery, it's the nurse.
The nurses. Yeah.
It is usually, right?
It's always.
And I think it has a lot to do with our training around like, we really do like, we ask you a lot of questions and we want to get to know you, and we like, before we even start telling you like what we think you should do, we're like, that's not really like the model of care for other healthcare providers, right? Like how often do you go to a doctor's appointment and they're like, oh, you're here because your foot hurts? Okay. I'm going to do a few quick things, then I'm going to tell you what's up. Like, I'm going to tell you what's going on. And it's like, wait, I have like other things that I want to talk to you about, right? Yeah. So it really is about like being a one-stop shop, being able to support people for that, and from pregnancy through the preschool years, right? do it in a way where we're supporting both the parents and the child. So that's another piece that's like a little bit fragmented, right? So like when you need something, when you're pregnant or postpartum, you go to your OB. When your baby needs something, you go to your pediatrician. And it's like, okay, so who's looking at the entire family here, right? So having the lens of like taking care of both the parents and the child or children, and doing it in a way where we're not compromising the individualized care that every family and parent needs and wants, right? Because we can even sleep, like I can sit here and be like, here's a plan for sleep training, and that might work for you, but it might not work for you, right? And so it's like, there has to be some level of conversation around like what actually works for each family. And you can't just give these, like, this is the issue with like, you know, I don't want to say like following people on social media, but like it's one, that's only one opinion. Yeah. It's only one way. Right. So anyway,
that may or may not be right too.
May or may not be right.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation out there.
Right.
And
it's only one-sided, right? So to your point, it's them telling you what to do. It's not them asking you what's going on and what your needs are.
Right. So that's the piece that we never wanted to compromise, is like at that individualized piece. Now, what we realized is when we were providing care here in Massachusetts, there was this opportunity for us to expand outside of Massachusetts. So that's where Nurture by NAPS came into play, which is our online membership platform where you can get support a year at a time. So sign up, you get support for a year, and we're going to provide you with support for that entire year, regardless of when you start your journey with us, through every single milestone that you have. And that's through like, on-demand courses. Like we want people to have, something they can watch or listen to in the middle of the night when they're breastfeeding, or like away on a weekend and like something comes up and they can just like look at a video. Or we have like on that platform, we have an Ask a Nurse message board. You can post a question 24/7. We'll respond to you within a day. And it's a registered nurse or nurse practitioner who's answering you.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. Really cool. I hope this is okay to say. I feel like just your energy and your vibes, you guys give me Big Little Feelings vibes. And then some.
Yeah. Oh,
like
thanks.
the next level, Big Little Feelings.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I feel that.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah. And then, like the individualized pieces, like we really do try and get to know like all of our members, right? Like you can book like a welcome member call with us. You can show up to a live, like I love the live Q&As.
There's a live Q&A happening right now.
Yeah.
Today is a pelvic floor physical therapist. So like anyone who's a member can jump in and ask a question about their pelvic floor needs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah, we're actually, we're jumping on that live Q&A right now.
I need that. I need that. Well, so I also think obviously we're going to link all your stuff so that all of our listeners, because we feel like could benefit from this. I mean, I wish I knew about you guys when
I was going through it.
I'm glad I know now, but I wish I knew.
Totally.
And so this is like such an incredible tool that you've created and a community that you've created.
Thank you.
No, you guys are amazing and powerful messages. I wish I knew. I found out about you guys after the fact, so a lot of people are preaching good things about you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Sure hope
We
so.
now know one. Should we fun questions?
Yeah, we wanted to end it with some fun questions.
Yeah. Okay, what surprised you both about being a mom?
It can be funny or serious.
Oh no, I already know mine. Would you like me to go?
I need a minute to think. I'm mulling a few choices over.
What surprised me as a mom, I don't know why this was so shocking, that I am responsible for 21 meals a week. I would prefer to not be responsible for that.
Plus the snacks.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about snacks. Right.
I know.
The snacks are
It
sometimes
never
more.
ends. Like I feel like you wake up, you're like, what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, and what's for dinner?
I know. I don't want to do that.
That was such a good answer. Never thought about
neither.
that, and it's a lot.
I feel like
It sucks.
Yes.
Declining that portion of
This
the
is
job.
why my kids have the mini muffins every morning for breakfast.
yeah.
There's no judgment.
No.
Mine is probably the conflicting feelings, like how like stressed and annoyed I can feel at times, and then like how fucking hard I love my kids.
Yes.
So like even last night I said when we all were setting up, I took my three kids out to dinner and they were assholes at the restaurant.
I know, I was just like,
and I was there being like, why did I do this? I don't like, you guys are horrible. And like my patience was thin. And then I like tucked them all in, and one of my husband was away, so my older daughter slept with me, and I was just like, I love you so much. Like, look how cute you are. Oh my God. Like, it's like, conflicting emotions.
Yeah.
So true.
Yep. So true.
Rage hard, love hard.
Yeah.
So
In the Silver household.
I feel that so hard. You don't even know.
Yeah. Yep.
What is your favorite way to unwind and recharge?
Do you know what I want to say?
No, I know what I'm going to say.
You go ahead.
No, I know what you're going to say.
Good.
Do you want to guess mine and I'll guess yours?
Yes, we guess each other's.
Yeah. I mean, watch Bravo is yours.
Ding, 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 ding.
Glass of wine
Same.
and Bravo.
Read smut books.
Yeah.
They knew.
I mean, I love that. That is a fun newlywed game.
Yeah.
We'll slay. I have recently given up my Bravo binges to read some books that Jamie has given me. So we're winding down. You know, Vanderpump just ended.
Yes, we
Summer
are
House
Bravo
just
fans
ended. We're in transition with some of the Real Housewives, so I have time on my hands.
How's your sex drive with the smut?
Great.
I know.
I like that. You're like, I'm
But,
horny
like,
right now.
This is an example where, like, my husband will pick up the book and it'll be like, "How did you? Do you want to
wanna-
read your book?" And I'll put the kids to bed.
Oh my God, I
Like
love
he's
that.
literally like we
learning.
had a sex therapist on once, and we talked about the temperature, like and how like the temperature needs to be cool. If you're hot, like why would you want anyone touching you? And I'm like, now this guy keeps the AC on a hot day. Like he just like they're very think
Black
like
and white,
that.
baby.
Black and
Yeah.
white.
Yep.
Simple
Yeah.
creatures.
So true.
All right. And final question, because it's a mom's night out. What is you're getting a mom's night out? Like, what's your favorite thing to do?
Oh, we're probably going to say the same thing.
Go out to dinner with our husbands?
No.
Mom's night out.
Moms.
Oh, mom's night out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're leaving
I
your
didn't hear
dads
that.
at home.
Oh, yeah.
Cold, dark hotel room. With
Do I get to sleep? Oh, wait. Do I get the night? Do I
can have the
night
I
away.
can have
well,
night away.
let's do our dream night. We've done it. Dinner, but an early dinner.
Yep.
I'll have a drink, but not a second or third because I don't want to pee when I'm sleeping in my cold, dark hotel room.
Correct. I don't want to wake up sweating because I had too much tequila.
Nope.
Right.
We turn the AC down to 65 because that's as low as the hotel
As
will
low
allow.
as the temperature will
It
allow
locks
in the
out.
hotel room.
We make it really dark.
Yep.
Warm cookies.
Yep. We'll order cookies to be delivered to the room if your room service has it, or grab
Yep.
cookies on the way
Yep.
home from dinner.
Wow.
Like a
This is very
really
specific.
great,
Goodness.
like easy to watch, funny movie or show.
Yep. I'll rewatch a show.
Like Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek. Yeah.
And then we go to bed.
So good.
And then go to bed and sleep
No
until
alarms.
Sleep until we naturally wake up.
Naturally wake up.
And usually the natural is also like 5:30.
Yeah. That's the dream right
yeah.
there for any mom.
Emily and
I'd
I
say.
can still log like
That's amazing.
11 to 13 hours of sleep at night.
Easily.
Yeah.
If left.
If in a cold
cold, dark
dark
hotel
hotel
room full
Guys,
of cookies.
I am not going.
gotta try this.
I'm not going home tonight. I'm staying in Boston.
You guys.
I don't even know if I got 13 hours of sleep in like the last few
You
days.
definitely did not.
Oh, no, I don't. Oh, all together. Well, you're boiling water at home, so you're clearly not getting any sleep.
But this is the bartering that we never touched on is this week. I knew my cousin from Pennsylvania was staying in a hotel in Boston, and I was like, I want to go. And my husband happened to say to me, would you mind if I went to Maine Thursday night and slept there because I'm golfing Friday? And I was like, that's a great idea. I'm going to go meet Kelly at her hotel room.
I
And
love that.
That's a big barter, like for
was
those
big,
with
yeah.
you with little babies. But I was like, went out to dinner and went to bed early and slept in
Did you
her
bring
hotel
the
room.
dog?
I didn't want to tell you, but it was a dog from the hotel, and my cousin loves
fucking
Maisie,
knew
so
it.
she paid
I
a
knew it.
$75 fee, and she had them deliver a cot for her to sleep in.
Stop.
You guys are
I love it.
ridiculous.
I just love it.
Yeah, cold dark hotel room. I want to be really clear. I am not I saw the picture. That's why I asked. I am
Cold dark
not.
hotel
I
room, my
have
dog.
gone
So
to a
sweet.
hotel 1 mile from my home.
Yeah.
To do this.
Okay, it doesn't
Yes.
have to be
Doesn't have to
fancy.
be
It doesn't have to be. No, you don't have to hop on a flight or drive 3 hours. You can literally just go down the street.
You can go on like hotels.
This is what
tonight
my
and
husband
just
got
grab a
me
hotel
for
that
my
night.
birthday present. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It was 3 nights in a hotel here in Boston. It
I
was 1 mile
aspire to be
down the
invited
road.
to Jamie's birthday.
She got invited. She came one of the nights. It was in a snowstorm. And I left the room one time to go and pick up takeout from a local restaurant. But otherwise, I just like stayed in the room.
I love that.
Watched TV,
But you know what?
ordered
You need
room
to, like,
service.
recharge, and then you probably went back and you were the most amazing person.
Yes.
You need the time alone.
Yes.
Ladies, take notes.
Take
I'm
notes.
taking notes.
Taking notes.
Guys, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
This
yeah.
was amazing.
That was so good.
Such a fun Friday.
Cheers.
Good therapy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.